Okay, so hopefully everyone has had the chance to join. So I'm going to start with the presentation now. So if you just give me a second to share my screen. Okay, so hopefully you guys should all be able to see my screen. Just let me know if you're not able to see it. But yeah, I'm going to start with the lecture now. So welcome everyone. This is 6 Med Common Interview Questions and how to answer them. And yeah, just please feel free, if you can't hear me or anything, just please let me know, or if there's any issues. Hopefully we can get them sorted soon. So just a little bit about 6 Med. So it's created by medical students for medical students. So we've taught over 10,000 students in the past 6 years, and we're really passionate about helping future medical students get into medical school, to show you all the tips and things that we didn't know when we were applying, just so it's easier for you. So our events, so there's the surgery webinars, so this webinar from 2 to 3. Also have UCAT and BMAT support, and we have personal statement and interview prep. So hopefully you guys, if you are applying this year, should have all had the UCAT and BMAT done, and personal statement. So if those of you who are applying this year should just be focused on interview prep at the minute. But again, any other questions or any other support that you might need, yeah, we can offer that. So just a bit about me. So as I was saying, I'm a 4th year medical student at UCL. So I've done 3 years of preclinical medicine, which is mainly focused on just lecture-based content. So just mainly book learning about medicine. And now I'm starting in my 4th year this year. So it's all about like clinical medicine, and you're being placed in hospitals and clinics. And so, yeah, you really get to see a lot more patients, interact with patients, talk to them, and get to see how those presentations appear in real life and how patients are in real life. So yeah, it's quite different to the first 3 years. So someone asked if this is a 6-year degree. So this is a 6-year degree course. So I have my 4th year and then 2 more years, so 5th and 6th year. And so I did my intercalation last year. So I intercalated in women's health. I did my IBSc in women's health. And yeah, that was such an amazing experience. So that's definitely something for you guys to consider when you're applying or looking at medical schools, because you aren't allowed to go outside of your medical school for your IBSc, but definitely take a look at the ones that your uni does offer. And if you're interested in it, definitely I would say consider it, because it's a very good experience. So I'm incredibly passionate about teaching. Yeah, I've taught UCAT, BMAT, also helped with like interviews, prep, personal statement, help. So I'm incredibly passionate about teaching for medical school applications. I'm currently interested in surgery, so my current placements have all been in surgery, so I'm very interested in that. But again, yeah, open to a lot of the different specialties. So the agenda for today, so we'll have an intro to some of the common interview questions, and just going over what you're expected to know. Structuring common interview questions, so those are just kind of like bullet points, so it's easier in your mind when you're going into the interview to know how to structure those common interview questions, just so you kind of hit all the points that you need to. Then we'll practice those common interview questions, just give you an idea about what kind of experience to have when you're answering the interview questions. And then finally, I'll leave some time at the end for just an open Q&A, just so there's time at the end if you do have any other questions that we didn't cover, that we'll be able to cover then. So just a few questions in the chat. So if you ask about a current issue that the NHS is facing, like obesity or something smaller, do we talk about bigger issues or something smaller? So I say this is very dependent on the question that they ask. So a lot of the times they'll give you a scenario or ask you a question, and they'll direct you to a current issue. So, for example, obesity is a very big issue, or they might ask you something very niche. So I'd say just try and ascertain what the question is looking for you to say, because a lot of the times it's kind of reading between the lines of seeing what they want you to say. And then preparing for MMI interviews. So there is actually a lot of overlap between the just panel and MMI interviews. You do end up getting asked a lot of similar questions, but of course the setup for MMI interviews is very different. The experience is very different. So I would say, especially right now where it's still a bit early for interviews, just try and have the basics down of the very common interview questions, which we'll cover today, about, structuring them, what points you need to make, and then just kind of go from there. So the differences is for MMIs is more like situational stuff. But again, you just really do need to have like the basics down. All right. So just some housekeeping rules. So just as you are, just keep your mics muted throughout the session. And please type your answers in the chat or the Q&A function if the chat is still disabled. And I'll try and get to as many get to as many questions as I can throughout the session. If I'm not able to answer your question during the session, just feel free to tell me at the end during the final Q&A, and I'll get around to it during that final Q&A. All right, so just to start with, on a scale of 1 to 4, how confident do you guys feel about medical interviews? So I'm not sure how much prep you guys have done at the minute. I'm assuming it's going to be very variable from person to person. So if you're able to in the chat, or if not in the chat, then in the Q&A, from a scale of 1 to 4, how confident do you feel about medical school interviews? Okay, so just feel free to put how confident you are, just into the chat, just so I can see kind of where you guys are with things. A few people not too confident or around the middle, so 2 to 3. Quite a few 1s and 3s. So I'd say it's either not confident or confident but want to know more. Nobody's extremely confident at the minute, which I wouldn't expect anyone to be extremely confident. I don't think I was extremely confident even going into my interviews. So it's very natural to feel not confident at all, especially when it's still quite early, and you're still trying to prep for it. Hopefully you'll feel a lot more confident at the end of the session today. Okay, so just some aims for today. So as I said, we're going to be tackling some of those common interview questions, and just helping you become confident with answering those common interview questions. So I think as some people brought up, there are quite a few niche areas that they can ask you about. For example, like the NHS issues or hot topics. So there are a lot of niche areas, but the main focus for today is just those common interview questions, because those are the questions that you can guarantee they're going to ask you about. And so you just really need to have those questions down, and you need to be able to answer them fully, be able to know what they're looking for, just basically hit all of those points that you need to hit for those common interview questions, because regardless of whatever interview you go into, whatever uni, like MMI or just panel interview, there are certain common interview questions that you'll just be asked over and over again. So with those type of questions, it's really important that you become confident with answering them. Just recognize what they are and recognize what they want you to say from those questions. So this is just a list of the very common interview questions that you should be expected to ask. So I was definitely asked most of these in my interviews when I was applying to medicine, and hopefully you've definitely heard of these questions before. So the first, which is, why do you want to study medicine? I can guarantee you will be asked that in one of your interviews at least, so you need to have a good answer for this question. And hopefully you guys do have an idea already of why you want to study medicine if you've already applied. So I would say, for this question, we're going to go on to it a bit more in depth, but again, it's going to be very different to how you present it in your personal statement, because you need to make it more concise. You're going to be verbalizing it. So yeah, why do you wish to study medicine? Hopefully you guys already have some ideas about that. Why this medical school? So again, this is something that you can focus on a bit later when you know what medical school that you'll be interviewing at. So again, this is just looking up the website for that uni or for that medical school, seeing what is different about that uni to others, seeing what they offer that other people don't. And yeah, that's really important as well. So again, that's probably something that you'll be asked. What do you do in your spare time? So it's really important that obviously I assume all of you guys have hobbies, but just trying to relate it back to medicine, it's really important, relating it back to how it would help you as a medical student. Um, how do you cope with stress? So again, you probably have dealt with stress during GCSEs to A levels, and you probably do have some coping mechanisms. So you need to be able to show that you will be able to cope with the stresses of being a medical student and ultimately being a doctor, because it's a lot more emotional stress, considering the environment that you'll be in, considering the content of what you're going to be studying, what you're going to be seeing. So you need to be able to make sure that you're going to be able to deal with that emotional stress rather than academic stress as well, which is might be a little bit different to what you're used to. But again, definitely something for you guys to consider. And then finally, tell me about your work experience. So again, something that will definitely come up that you're definitely going to be needing to mention, talking about your work experience. So I would say definitely have a few ideas of experiences or instances in your mind. So maybe it was an interaction with a patient, or maybe it was a consultation with a doctor or a surgery that you saw, just a experience that you saw. And how you've learned from it. So it's really important to structure this answer well. So I'd say what you saw, what the situation was, what happened, how the patient or the doctor reacted to it, and then what you've learned from it. So again, that question definitely will be asked. So really make sure you have a good structure for that. Okay, so yeah, someone's asking about examples of professionalism questions. So we will go on to some of the ethical questions. So stuff like confidentiality, or yeah, any other ethical or moral scenarios, like kidney transplants or organ donation. So yeah, some of those questions definitely will come up. And again, I think it's more just understanding what the big common questions are in those areas. So confidentiality is really important. Organ donation, abortion, euthanasia. So those type of professional questions. And obviously they're not expecting you to know everything about those areas, but definitely just try and have a good idea in your mind of the pros and cons of both sides of the argument for those types of questions. Okay. So yeah, again, just please let me know any questions you have on anything that we cover. Just please let me know. And I'll try and get to as many questions as I can. Okay, so going over the structure for the interview questions. So first, address the topic directly. So it might be a bit easier if you have an MMI station, because in the MMI station, you'll be able to read the question and read the scenario and have reading time before answering. In the panel, it's different because they'll just ask you directly. But yeah, first thing you want to do is address that topic directly. So whatever they're asking you, so if they ask, why do you want to study medicine? Address that topic directly. Secondly, discuss examples. So in certain situations, it might be harder to think of examples, but wherever it's relevant or wherever you can, try and discuss examples. So for example, why do you want to study medicine? If you have a personal reason, like seeing a family member go through medical issues or how struggles, discuss that example. Again, for work experience, this is really vital. Like you have to discuss an example. So a consultation you saw, something like that. Anything else like hobbies. So discuss an example of if you're playing a sport, if you're playing a particular game, discuss that example. Just because it's you're providing concrete evidence of your quality to become a good medical student. or your work experience, you're providing actual evidence of that. So it's really important, if you can, to discuss an example. Then extract qualities of a good doctor from that example. So what did that example show you, or what has it taught you? What skills has it taught you? So if it's playing a team sport, has it showed you how to be a good leader, work well in a team? If you were helping a family member throughout their medical issues, has it taught you empathy? Again, on work experience, if you saw a doctor be empathetic or be a good leader, how has that impacted you? So again, just try and think of the good qualities that a doctor requires and link it back to that example, because I guarantee you in every example, there's some good qualities or good traits that you saw. So it's just trying to think about what those were and then relate it back to the question. And again, relate this back to why it's important for medicine. So why is team working good for medicine? Why is leadership good for medicine? So again, you need to be able to work in a team in medicine. You're never going to be working by yourself. And again, leadership is really important. You're going to be, even as a junior doctor, you're going to be teaching other medical students. You're going to be helping other people in your team. You need to be able to be a good leader in that. Empathy, like patience, those are really, really important for patient interaction. So just relate to them, why they're important for medicine and why they're important to being a doctor. Okay, so yeah, finally, just linking them back to why that would make you a good doctor. So it's all good to like list the traits, but you need to say how you have kind of taken those traits on yourself. So saying that you saw the good team working skills and it showed you how to be better team players, or you saw the leadership skills, it showed you how to be a better leader. So make sure you always link back to how it make you a good doctor and how you've learned from that experience. Just so they know that you're not just watching and observing, you're actually proactively taking those experiences and learning from them yourself. Okay, and again, just any questions you want, just please feel free to put them in the Q&A. Yeah, and I'll try and get to them. So going on to the big question, so why do you wish to study medicine? So reasons, as I've said, love for the sciences, family experience, medical topics. So if anyone is feeling brave enough, please do share in the Q&A any reasons for why you guys want to study medicine. So love for the sciences, if anyone has a specific interest in a specific area of medicine or medical topics, that's a really good reason for why I want to study medicine. Again, as I said, family experiences, so this is very individual, so it will vary obviously from person to person. But yeah, if you do have any family experiences that have shaped you, I would say if it's relevant, do definitely mention it, because it's a very unique experience to have. So yeah, someone said academic curiosity. So yeah, I would say again, do try and figure out like what medical topics you're interested in, or science topics you're interested in. Try and make it as specific and like individualized as possible. Range of career opportunities, research and teaching specialties. So yeah, that's a really good point. So a less cliche manner to say like I want to be a doctor since you're young. So yeah, that's really hard. So I would say if you do have any like specific reasons, so always try and link it back to an experience. So if you had an experience when you were young, for example, if you learn about a specific area in medicine or area in science, if you had a specific family member, or if you had a friend, or if you experienced a medical issue yourself when you were young, you can bring that up, definitely do bring it up. The important thing for when you're saying, oh, I wanted to do medicine since I was young, is backing it up. So showing that if you had that experience when you were young, what have you done since then to follow on from that? And what have you done since then to research that area more, to, read up more about it? So it's not bad to say that you wanted to be a doctor since a young age, but it's really important that you show that it's been like an ongoing interest and an ongoing passion of yours. So show evidence that you've been reading more up about that and researching more about it. So yeah, hopefully that helps. So yeah, liking of sciences and like just medicine in general is a bit generic. So I would say the big thing about that is just trying to find a specific interest in medicine or in science that you like. So it doesn't have to be the specialty that you're going to go into eventually, obviously. This has to be something you're interested in right now. So just try and find a area of medicine that you're interested in. Hopefully you should have one if you do want to study medicine. So it can be anything. It doesn't have to be like a lifelong passion of yours, just something that you're really interested in right now in medicine, and just try and read up more around the topic. And that will make it more unique and more like individual to you. So again, family experiences are a really good one. And again, just any experience that you've had, or like any interest in any academics situation. So it's really important that you show evidence that you've like done more to find out about it. So what did you do to find out more? So work experience or volunteering is a really good way to find out more about it. So if you're interested in a specific specialty of medicine, did you do work experience there? Did you volunteer in that area? Just reading more about it. So I would suggest for anyone interested in academic medicine, which I think a lot of you were, just look up academic medical journals. And a lot of them do offer like free articles. So any free articles you can read about on that topic that you're interested in, definitely bring that up, because that's a really good way to show that you're proactively researching that area of medicine that you're interested in. And then how those experiences confirmed your interest in medicine. So why did work experience, volunteering, researching more, how did those confirm that interest? And then just kind of summarize it all. So the big thing about answering this question is, of course, you need to have a good reason, but then more than that, you need to have evidence to back up your reason. You need to have evidence for why you're interested in it, what you did to follow up on your interest, how it furthered your interest. And so yeah, so just some examples from me. So I was interested in like geriatrics, so I read a few books about geriatric medicine, talked about them in my interview. And then for the number of reasons, um, I would say maximum two, because you do want to expand on your reasons. So you can't be listing lot of reasons, because we won't be able to expand on them. So just try and pick one or two reasons, just so you have enough time to fully expand on them in depth. And because the depth is what they're looking for, just not the number of reasons. Volunteering is good. Volunteering is good as work experience, because they do appreciate it's very hard to find work experience. So definitely, if the volunteering is relevant, definitely mention that, because it is a good experience. Okay, so then why do you wish to study at X medical school? So at a specific medical school. So those of you who have applied to medicine this year, so obviously you know what unis you're applying to. So I would say over the Christmas break, just look up their websites. They'll have all of the information for their medical course on their website. So they'll have a course structure. So is it prompt-based learning, case-based learning, traditional? So UCL is traditional. You have 3 years of preclinical medicine, 3 years of clinical medicine. Certain medical schools mix it, so they'll have clinical and preclinical at the same time. So yeah, just look up that. That's really important. Anatomy, do they have prosection or dissection? So prosection is you won't have a full body, you'll just have small sections. Dissection is you'll have a full body. So again, something to look up. Placements. So if you're able to find the hospitals that you'll be placed at, that's really interesting, and that's really good, because some hospitals will have a specialty. So for example, Royal Free is a really good transplant hospital. So just look up the different placements that you'll be at, because again, that will just kind of further your interest. And again, intercalation. So as I said, if your uni offers intercalation, is it compulsory or not? What integrated courses do they offer? So again, just try and get as much information about the medical school as possible. Learning style. So look up their forms of assessment. Is it just all final year exams? Is it coursework? And then relate it back to what type of learner you are, and say why you would suit that learning style, why you would suit that form of assessment. And then finally, this is also very important, so don't neglect this part, the clubs and the work-life balance. So again, uni want you to kind of get on board with the whole uni lifestyle. So make sure that you say that what clubs you'll be interested in, how it will help you balance your work-life balance, and what societies that you'll enjoy being part of. So that's really important. They do want to see that you're going to join their societies, you're going to join their clubs, and you're going to be proactive about all of that. So yeah, CBL is I think it's case-based learning. We have case-based learning at UCL. Might be clinical-based at other unis. And as a graduate, so I don't. So the main way to get paid experience in NHS, I think, is being a healthcare assistant. So I think most people I know who have been a graduate and applying for medicine, most people have worked as a healthcare assistant. And again, you get amazing experience because you get to really be one-on-one with patients. You get to write their drug charts, and really that's such a great experience because you're going to have that experience that a lot of other applicants don't. And so I'd say looking to being a healthcare assistant. Okay, and then the hobbies question. So what do you do in your spare time? So any hobbies that you have. So again, don't stress too much about whether it's being a part of a team or like winning prizes in competitions. So it can just be a general hobby that you don't that you do not to win any competitions or play any games. So don't stress too much about that. Again, relate it back to how it helps you maintain that good work-life balance. And again, just try and relate it back to how you're going to sustain those hobbies at university. So if you want to, you can definitely look up on their uni website what societies they have, what clubs they have. And again, a lot of medical schools will have separate medical societies and separate medical clubs. So they'll have medical student sport clubs where it's just medical students, or medical student music clubs. So again, that's something that you can look up, and if they do have that, definitely mention it because it's that's something that they want to see that their students are engaging in. And then lastly, what skills have you developed through your hobbies? So again, as always, it's so important to make sure that whatever skills you're learning from your hobbies, relate it back to, it could be teamwork, leadership skills, patience, and then again, just try and relate it back to how it's going to help you as a medical student. So again, teamwork is so vital as a medical student. You're going to be doing a lot of teamwork and a lot of groups projects and stuff like that. And leadership, again, you're all going to have to lead at some point as a medical student. And then just socializing in terms of doing hobbies to bond well as a group. So those are all really important skills. So do remember to mention them for this question. So they're not just asking what you do in your spare time. You need to remember to always try and link it back to how it's going to make you a good medical student and ultimately a good doctor. Okay, so moving on. So going on to some of the current affairs questions. So I know this is something that a lot of people stress about because obviously current affairs are always changing, and it's hard to stay on top of all of the different current affairs. And obviously they don't expect you to know everything about all of the different current affairs. So if they give you a health or medical problem, it will probably be something you've already heard of. So don't stress too much about them asking you about a very niche topic. A lot of the times it'll be something that you've already heard of that's already been in the news. So yeah, if you are asked about any current affairs topics, so for example, the obesity crisis. So first of all, just describe the medical health problem. So hopefully you already have a little bit of background information about the issue, about the problem. So just try and describe that medical issue, describe the problem, just kind of set the scene. Then describe what factors have contributed to this problem. So for example, for obesity, you could be saying like the cost of living crisis, meaning people have to look for cheaper meals and food, which are often, unhealthy options. They don't have the time to make themselves healthy homemade food. And again, just apply this to any other problem that they might give you. So try and think about what factors have contributed to this problem. Okay, then next, solutions to the issue. So they're not expecting you to solve the issue. It is much bigger issue than what you can solve. They're just looking for some solutions or some kind of insight from you, just so you have a bit of insight about the wider societal issues around the issue. Going off for the obesity issue, so again, don't just say you need to exercise and eat healthier, because for a lot of people that's just not an option, or it's just circumstances are out of their control. So highlight difficulties in that. So for example, the cost of living crisis and inflation. So people aren't able to afford healthy food. So often it's the unhealthy food that is within their budget. So offer solutions to that issue. So making healthier food cheaper and more accessible. And so they're kind of looking for you to look around the issue and highlight those difficulties in the solutions, rather than just the easier solutions, if that makes sense. And then summarize your answer. So if they're looking for a for and against type of issue, just try and make sure that you don't sit on the fence with it. Obviously, it's very important for you to take both sides of the situation. So if they are asking you to say for and against a certain issue, make sure that you are covering both sides of the debate and you're covering both sides of the issue. But then again, you do need to kind of end up on one side or the other, and just try and make sure that you're backing up your reasons. Okay, so these are just some possible current affair topics. And of course, this doesn't cover everything, but this is just a good kind of indication of what they might be asking you about, what they might be looking for. So COVID-19 and mental health. So that's dealing with like the effects of lockdown on people's mental health, isolation, loneliness, and vaccination. So again, this is very, very vital, especially for COVID-19 vaccination. So you need to know why people won't be taking up the vaccine. And it's really important in those situations to not blame the people for not taking up vaccination. A lot of the time it's just because of misconceptions, a lack of knowledge, a lack of trust. So it's really important in those type of situations not to blame the individual, but just to mention that they might have a lack of knowledge and a lack of trust. Antibiotics, so again, that's kind of an ongoing issue for a while. Just be aware of the prescribing issues around that. Brexit, so again, that's been going on for a while, so they're probably less likely to ask about that. But again, it's really important that you remember the issues with healthcare. A&E and GP crisis, again, that's been going on for a while. And you just need to know about the for and against for both sides. Same goes for abortion, so you need to know about the for and against for both sides. The law hasn't changed too much around abortion recently, but again, just try and remember the medical abortion, so that's just 2 pills for the medical abortion, and again, just to try and like take both sides of the argument into account, because they want to know that you're looking at all sides of the argument. Same goes for organ donation. Look at both sides of the argument for opt-in and opt-out. So they've changed England, I believe, to opt-out. So again, it's just important if you're going to interviews in Wales and Scotland, make sure you know if it's opt-in, opt-out. And again, it's really important for you guys to look at both sides of the argument, because regardless of what side you are on the debate, you need to make sure you mention both sides of the argument. And then finally, aging population. So again, this has been around for a while. And yeah, just remember to kind of take into account all the other medical issues that are associated with an aging population. Okay, so if anyone has any other current affairs that they want me to mention, just please let me know. So anything I can think of the top of my head right now, it's just euthanasia. So COVID-19 vaccination, incredibly important currently. Again, obesity crisis, sugar tax, but yeah, anything else that you can think of. Again, remember, they're not going to ask you anything too niche, so don't worry about having a current affair you haven't heard of. Most likely you definitely will have heard of it before. Okay, so if, just for example, discussing any crisis, I thought we'd just have practice at this question. So I'm not sure if I can do breakout rooms. So yeah, so I don't think it lets me do breakout rooms, unfortunately. So I'll give you guys around 5 minutes. Actually, I think just due to time, I might give you 2 to 3 minutes for this case. So discussing A&E crisis, again, try and think back to the structure that we used. So address the issue, so address the A&E crisis, discuss like the difficulties and the solutions. So again, you don't need to solve the issue. You just need to have a few ideas about what you can do to improve the issue, any difficulties, and then just summarize. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to think about it. And then anyone who is feels free to unmute yourselves and share the answer. Yeah, I will let you know when your time is up and then we can share our answers that we get. Okay, so yeah, that's around a couple minutes for you guys to think about the question. So anyone who's yeah been able to come up with an answer, if anyone's brave enough, please feel free to unmute yourselves and you can yeah let us all know the answer. If not, feel free to put it in the Q&A or put it in the chat, just so I can see what you guys are thinking for this question, how you guys have got on. So yeah, that was a really good answer. So the patient to doctor ratio is higher, so you have a lot of patients but not as many doctors. And so yeah, critically ill patients have to wait even more time. Yeah, so you need to improve that doctor-patient management. And then yeah, just operating system for each hospital, which regulates the severe and critical cases. So yeah, that's a really good answer. So I think Hafsa has raised your hand. So yeah, do you want to discuss your answer?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'd like to just share my answer on this question. There is a current big crisis with A&E services, and as some of the people mentioned, it's the issue to do with doctor-patient ratio. So too many people attending, not many doctors or nurses to attend to these patients. And also there is an interesting news out there to say that some patients are actually attending A&E because they can't even secure a GP appointment. So even though A&E appointments are meant to be for acutely unwell people who needs to be, seen there and then, because some patients can't really go and see their GP because GP appointments are very limited nowadays. Some actually go to A&E for that very reason.
Yeah.
So it adds to the issue. And yeah, so there is a staffing issue, as some people mentioned. Also, there are limited resources. So the term of not being enough beds out there to accommodate the people, and patients having to sleep in chairs while waiting to be seen. That also is an issue out there. And I think that just makes people more angry, frustrated with the health service. And it just adds a lot more pressure on doctors and nurses. And I think a potential solution could be, one way to retain doctors and nurses is to improve pay. And that also will help with nurses striking. That's just a potential answer at the moment.
Yeah, no, that was a very good answer. So you covered a lot of really good points in that. So yeah, I really liked how you linked it back. So saying how if people can't get a GP appointment, they'll just go straight to A&E, and that just furthers the issue, furthers the problem. And again, it's really important, as you did, so not to put it onto the patient. So it's just making it a bit more understandable that patients will be upset over this. Obviously, it's not their fault, and it's very natural to get upset when you're waiting such long times when you have a medical issue. So I think that was a really good answer. So yeah, I covered a lot of good issues. And yeah, in the chat there's quite good answers here. So yeah, improving education. Oh, I think my laptop is frozen, but yeah, yeah, few hospital beds, aging population. So again, it's really important to, as you did, understand that there's a lot of other issues at play. And so trying to link those issues together are really good, and it's going to give your answer a lot more detail. So yeah, just going over a model answer for this. So again, just describing the problem, which I think a lot of you did well. So A&E had a 4-hour waiting limit, which has not been met in so many A&E hospitals. They're not being seen on time, which impacts the quality of care. And again, I think you guys were able to explain it a lot more, which is really good. So explain the impact on the patients, how they're going to be frustrated, how it's going to impact the quality of care, they're going to become sicker and more ill. Contributing factors. So Brexit, so the staff have been leaving, fewer staff, as you've mentioned, COVID-19, so bigger health issues, meaning more people coming to hospitals. Not enough bed space, understaffing, underfunding, lack of patient education, and then slow discharge. So I think you brought up a lot of those contributing factors. I think a lot of you are understanding those contributing factors really well. And then solutions. So it's very hard, especially as people who aren't even in medical school yet, it's very hard for you to try and think of solutions and summaries, but increasing staff in A&E specialties, that'll really help the understaffing issue. More people would be able to be seen. Public health campaigns to educate patients. So a lot of the times, as you said, it can be something dealt by the GP or dealt with the pharmacist. Improving discharges procedures. So that's something known as bed blocking, which I'm not sure if you guys have heard about. Bed blocking is basically when you have patients who are well enough to go home, but because of just delays in discharge, they're healthy patients which are in hospital beds, but they're not able to go home because of delays in the discharge. So it might be delays in organising transport, organising social care, and because of that delay, they're taking up beds when they're healthy to go home. And so yeah, just improving that type of communication between different services like transport, social health, that can really help the issue. So yeah, I think a lot of you were very good at this question and brought up a really good points for this. So structuring the ethical questions. So this is the final question type that we're going to go on to. So this is stuff like abortion and euthanasia. So if I start with abortion, for example, so discussing the ethical issues. So abortion in the UK can be done up to 24 weeks. So you do need to know that as a fact. There's 2 types of abortion, medical abortion and surgical. Medical is more common. And this is a bit of a niche area for you to know about. So I'm not sure if they would test you on this, but the medical abortion pill used to be taken at home during COVID, and they've changed it now, so you have to take it in clinic. So there's just issues with that because patients now have to travel to the clinic just to take this pill. and then travel home, and they might miscarry on the way home. Again, that's a very niche area. I'm not sure if they would ask you about that. Just something that did come up for me. Identify both sides of the argument. So again, it's very important that you understand why people might be against abortion and why people would be for abortion. And again, just trying to so that you understand both sides of the argument. Doesn't mean you have to side with anyone, just trying to show the examiner, show the person that you do comprehend both sides of the argument. Identify the ethical pillars for these for both arguments. So we haven't covered the ethical pillars today, but hopefully you guys do remember some of those ethical pillars from your personal statement. So some examples, so autonomy is hugely important in abortion. So it's vital that patients have autonomy over their own healthcare, over their body. Denying abortion would go against autonomy. Beneficence. So again, this can go both ways. So it might be more the better option to have an abortion if it would jeopardize the mother's health or the mother's well-being. But some people might see it more beneficent to have that child and have a baby. So it's really important to see the ethical pillars for both sides of the argument. Another issue just for abortion that I wanted to say is remember to always refer to the fetus. It's not a baby, it's only a baby after it's born. So remember to always refer to it as a fetus, because just using baby in terms of that language is very controversial. So if you can, just try and remember to always refer to it as fetus. Just a small tip to remember. Then finally, choose which side you agree with and justify why. So this is vital for the ethical questions. You need to choose which side you agree with. And obviously it might just be the side that you agree with on that day. It doesn't have to define you, but just remember you need to just choose a side you agree with, so pro or against. And you need to back up why, because they don't want you to just sit on the fence and not side with either for or against, because they need to know that you have your own beliefs and your own principles. And so you just need to justify why, and they're not going to judge you for choosing a particular side. You just need to make sure that you do choose one and justify why you have chose that side. And again, just summarize everything you've said. And again, it might be just timing wise, it might be difficult to get onto that summary ending. So just make sure that you're kind of structuring your time well for these questions. Just to remember that you do have time to go through that short summary at the end. Okay, so again, just possible ethical dilemmas. So we went through the pro-life and pro-choice arguments. Euthanasia, again, it's a very ethical, it would probably come up. Contraceptives for 16 to 18-year-olds. So you are allowed to get contraceptives without parental permission as a 16-year-old, as a 15-year-old. But again, that's just involves assessing competency in teenagers. Organ donation. So as I said, it's an opt-out system in England. So just pros and cons for that. Especially discussing how it's changed from an opt-in to opt-out, benefits and negatives of that. Lastly, Jehovah's Witnesses and blood transfusions. So Jehovah's Witnesses are known to refuse blood transfusions, as it's against their religion. But again, you just need to, if you're the common typical situation is you have a Jehovah's Witness patient who's unconscious in an emergency situation. So would you give them a blood transfusion or not? And again, just remember to always do both sides of the argument. Okay, so just to summarize, be confident in yourself. So the confidence is the biggest thing that comes across in any type of interview. So it's so vital that you need to be confident with what you're saying and your answers. So that's such a vital part of any interview. Practice. So the more you practice these questions, the more it's gonna, the main points are gonna kind of solidify in your mind of what points you need to be saying, what examples you need to be giving, what qualities and skills that you need to be mentioning. So the only way to kind of remember all of this is just to practice more. And again, just a bit of luck, best of luck for all of your interviews. I'm not sure if you might have had a few so far, but to any that who have had any and are going to have some next year, best of luck to all of you. So I really hope that you do amazingly in those interviews. So just to round off, on a scale of 1 to 4, hopefully you're feeling a bit more confident, but please feel free to share how confident you're feeling now about the medical interviews. So again, from 1 being not confident at all, 4 is extremely confident. Okay, so 4 extremely confident. It's really good to see. 2 and 3.5. So really good to see you guys are more confident now than before. So just wanted to say thank you very much for listening. And I really hope this was useful for you guys. But any questions that I haven't covered, we have about 5 minutes to cover the rest of the questions. So just to go back over some of the questions that I missed. So organ trafficking associated with organ donations. So I don't think they would ask you too much about organ trafficking just because it's not super relevant to the UK system. So the most likely thing they're going to ask you about is, why do you think an opt-out system is good? Why do you think an opt-in system is good? Pros and cons of those type of systems. Or they might give you certain scenarios. So they might give you a scenario on 2 different patients and what one do you give an organ to? And it's always the one who is more clinically in need. So the one who's more clinically unwell, who would need the organ more. That is always the one that you give it to, regardless for any other situation. And so the cost of living crisis affecting obesity. So again, this is a very big issue. Again, they don't expect you to have a solution for it and have any kind of magic solve for it, because again, the cost of living crisis is way out of any of our hands. I would say, a good suggestion that you said is volunteering in soup kitchens. Any type of thing like that. So volunteering more, increasing benefits for people in the poverty line, more affordable, healthier meals, food banks. So things like that. Obviously, they're not going to fix the issue, but those are just small solutions. So what's important for an online interview? So I appreciate a lot of you might have online interviews now, which is very different to what I had. But again, it's important, just practical issues. So make sure you dress smartly, nothing in your background. And again, just remember this is so important to be confident in an online interview because you don't have your body language to show that. So you need to make sure that the way you're speaking, the way you're presenting yourself is super confident because you don't have your body language to show that online. And again, the way that you present yourself online, the way you speak online, just make sure that it's as confident as you can be, just to kind of make up for the fact that you don't have that in-person kind of interaction. So questions surrounding scientific knowledge. So again, this will just be based about what you put in your own personal statement. So this is more kind of relevant to the panel interview side of things. So if you mentioned you're interested in cardiology, for example, just make sure that whatever area that you mentioned that you're interested in, you actually are genuinely interested in, and you actually have done that research and done that wider reading. Obviously, if they ask you something that you don't know about, that's completely fine to say you don't know. And they won't get mad at you for saying that you don't know something. Just make sure that you do mention what you do know. And just for pay more as a doctor from graduating certain medical schools, so you don't get paid more, not at all, for graduating from certain medical schools, that the medical school you went to doesn't have an impact on your pay. And so for the unconscious Jehovah's Witness patient who needs blood, so it's always like do no harm. So if they need blood, you would, unless they specifically said that they don't want blood. So if that's the type of situation where they've explicitly given like not given consent for blood transfusion, then you wouldn't. But if it's kind of a grey area, then you always just do no harm. If they need it for life-saving emergency treatment, then you would. So skills, leadership, team working skills, empathy, patience. Those are the really big four that you just need to know about. North-South divide, really, really important. So again, if you are interviewing at different unis in the North or South, so definitely you can mention that. And contraception, so the youngest age a girl can receive contraception. So I'm not too sure about the youngest age that someone can receive contraception. But the common situation that you'll get is a 14, 15-year-old girl coming to you asking for contraception. And so the first thing you need to do is assess their competency. So that means assessing if they're able to understand the information, they're able to weigh up the pros and cons of the situation, and they're able to come to a conclusion. And that's all without being coerced, without any biases in their mind. So that's really important when you have that situation, to make sure you mention that you would assess competency. And then only if they're competent, then you can give them contraception. And again, you don't need any parental permission for giving contraception, but you do need them to be competent. Okay, and again, competency is just being able to weigh up the information given to you, understand the information, and come to an unbiased conclusion. Okay, so I think that's all of the time I have for today for the lecture. In terms of getting the recording, I think you'd have to email 6med to get the recording, just because I'm not sure about how they're giving access to the recording. So yeah, I would say email them to ask for the recording. But again, thank you all very much for joining. I really hope this was useful for you guys. And yeah, best of luck in all of your interviews. And yeah, thank you very much for joining today.